Naquab from the Arm Israelite channel. The reason I'm making this channel is because I want to bring firearm safety, firearm awareness, and tactics to Yasharala. Okay, I know there's a lot of you guys out there who don't have as much training or knowledge, or maybe this is your first gun that you're buying, or the first time you even wanted to take a step into the gun world. I'm going to help you along that way. Like I said, my name is Naquab, and I'm going to be here on this channel to help you guys. So today's lesson is going to be on the 4 rules of firearm safety. Okay, I know there's a lot of people who grew up with guns, or maybe even shoot guns on a regular basis, but don't have this under their belt. They don't have this in their head all the time. These rules are meant to be used to keep everyone safe, whether it be the shooter, the person getting into guns, people at the range, everyone. These rules are meant to pretty much keep everybody safe. So let's go ahead and get into it. Rule number 1 is going to be treat all firearms as if they're loaded. And what that means is, it's pretty plain and simple what that means, but it goes a little bit deeper than that, right? So here I have a XDM spin safety check. I'll safety check it for you guys. You can see here the chamber is clear and the magazine well is clear. All right. So treating all firearms as if it's loaded. I know that this firearm is not loaded. We just safety check it. Even though this gun is not loaded, I will not point it at anybody. I will not point it at anything that is living, whether it be a dog, a cat, a giraffe, whatever. I'm not going to point this gun at any living thing. Just because I know that it's not loaded does not take the lethality away from this pistol, right? Because if I point this at somebody and they think I'm trying to kill them, I could be shot. Also, that is called assault. It's brandishing a firearm. So you never ever want to point any weapon at anybody that you don't intend on shooting, okay? That's pretty plain and simple. Most states, that is a felony. Some states, it's a misdemeanor. It just depends on where you live. But brandishing a firearm or intimidation with a firearm is a very, very serious crime. Not saying that you can't do it. Like in the state where I live, Arizona, if I fear for my life, or I'm in a situation where I have to use my firearm, and me just pulling out my firearm was enough to get the guy to stop, it's perfectly legal. I do not have to shoot that person. I've heard many times that if you pull out your gun, you're going to have to shoot them or you're going to go to jail. That is not true in any state that I'm aware of. Pulling out a gun to stop the threat, yeah, you're A-okay. But that's what the news and everybody else will have you believe in the media and politicians and things like that. All right. If you see me looking off to the side on my laptop, I have bullet points that I want to go over. So if you see me looking up, I'm just reading that. You want to train and handle all firearms as if you're in a gunfight. What I mean by that is, if I'm in a gunfight, I'm not going to be, playing around with my gun. I'm not going to be finger banging or whatever, trying to, looking all into the gun and just twirling it on my finger and trying to be, just a cool guy, badass, and doing things like that. All right. You can always tell how trained a person is by the way that they handle firearms. And that's a proven fact. My background, I'm 5 years in the Army as infantry. I'm deployed to Iraq. I got time as private law enforcement in California. I'm an executive protection agent right now, and a high threat security in QRF. That's what I do right now. And I can tell you, when I was security, when I used to do just like regular armed security, just regular security, I don't know how some of these guys even got a permit to carry a gun, because their firearm safety and their knowledge of firearms was so minimal that it scared me. I was like, I do not want to work with this guy. If somebody's super trained, they'll pick up a gun. First thing they'll do is they'll safety check it. Right, this gun's not loaded. You'll see them with I call it a high finger access or bore access, because that I like to carry my or handle the gun with my finger high up on the bore of the gun, which is the barrel, right? I like to keep it so far away from the trigger that I know nothing's going to happen. I have big hands, so I'm able to do that. I know some people have smaller hands, but as long as you have your hand or your finger away from that trigger guard in a way where it's not conducive for you to touch the trigger, all right, you're good. Also, with treating all firearms like as if they're loaded, you want to not. You don't want to handle this gun in a way where it's going to put yourself or others in danger. Like I always say, there's two types of dangerous people with guns. One is dangerous to everybody, including himself. The other is dangerous to anybody he wants to be dangerous to. You don't want to be that first guy, right? So you don't want to point this gun, play with this gun, or do anything that would intimidate or put somebody's life, limb at risk, okay? So another thing about treating all guns as loaded is you want to make sure that every gun that you handle is either unloaded or loaded. All right, you want to check the status of every gun that you touch. Okay, so when I used to work at a gun store out here in Arizona, I don't know how many times I was flagged by a person handling a gun, and their excuse was, "Well, you just checked it," but they would never check it, and they would always say they never checked it because I just checked it. You don't even know if I handed you a loaded gun, right? So what I mean by checking all gun and knowing this, the status of the gun is this is a pistol, right? I'm gonna open up the slide. I want to make sure that there's no brass or live round in the chamber. And I also want to make sure there's nothing in the mag well. Right? For a rifle, right, I want to lock the bolt to the rear. I want to do the same thing. I want to check inside the mag well and inside the chamber to make sure there's nothing in there. All right. And these have all been safety checked before the video. That's why the actions are open. And for a shotgun, same thing. I want to go ahead, open up the action. I want to look into the chamber. This doesn't have a magazine, but it does have a magazine tube. Or let me say it doesn't have a magazine well, but it has a magazine tube. So I want to make sure I can see the follower in the magazine tube to make sure that there's no live ammunition in there. Okay, so that's what I mean by checking all guns to make sure that they're loaded and knowing the status of your firearm. Because if I hand you a gun and I think it's unloaded, but I just failed to see that there was an actual live bullet in the chamber and I hand it to you, you don't check it, you pull the trigger and shoot somebody, that is now on you. Legally, financially, that is legally on you. All right. So now we're going to move to number 2. All right, now we're going to move on to rule 2. Rule 2 is never point your firearm at anything that you're not willing to destroy. Okay, sounds pretty simple, pretty cut and plain. A lot of negligent discharges happen when people are pointing their guns at something that they didn't want to point it or don't want to destroy, and end up letting one off and injuring or killing someone. That's very, very tragic, and you own every round that leaves that muzzle. Until it starts moving, you own that round. And anything that happens, you're liable. You're going to be liable legally, you're going to be liable civilly if you get sued or anything like that, all right? 99.9% of negligent discharges happen because people don't follow rule number 1 and rule number 2 of the 4 rules of firearm safety. If you follow those 2 rules, well, you're supposed to follow them, but with those first 2, you can almost get rid of every negligent discharge. Okay. Like I said, man, I can't stress how important it is for you to understand that you own every round that leaves that barrel. If you mess around with a gun and you shoot it and it hits a kid and that kid dies, you're on the hook. If you shoot yourself, you're on the hook. It's just always good never to point your muzzle at anything that you're not willing to destroy. All right. Number 3, you're going to keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. So, for example, I'm on target. I decide, okay, this guy needs to be shot. Then I will put my finger on the trigger and press up around. I always want to keep my finger out of the trigger guard until I'm ready to fire. This also can be attributed to a negligent discharge because say you're in a self-defense situation and you're gonna need to shoot someone, and you made that conscious decision to draw your firearm, but that guy stopped. So okay, I don't want no part of this. But you got that adrenaline running through your body. You're in that flight or fight mode, and your fingers aren't as dexterous as they normally would be. And you pop off around, you're still liable because that guy is no longer a threat, right? So you want to, even when you're punching out, when you learn how to draw a firearm from concealment, there's 4 steps, and you're not concealed, there's 3 steps. You know, until you get your sights on target, that's when you go ahead and pop off around, right? Not before. You don't want to keep your finger on the trigger, and especially with police. A lot of people think police are super trained. They're not. I know police officers. I was a private law enforcement officer, and I can tell you a lot of police only go to the range twice a year when they got to qualify. That's it. They don't know much about that. I mean, you can watch episodes of Cops where cops, it takes 3 cops to figure out how to open up the action on a pistol. You know, I cannot stress it enough. Keep your fingers off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. The possibility of pulling your trigger, especially with modern day striker fire guns, with them having triggers that are very, I wouldn't say easy to pull, but they're very low on poundage. 4 pounds, 5 pounds. When that adrenaline is pumping through your body, man, that's gonna be easy to pull. 4 pounds, quick to the rear, bam, you just fire off around. It's an accident, yeah, but actually it's not really an accident. It's negligent, but you own it. You got to be able to pay for it. Yeah, so that adrenaline can do wonders. You become Superman with that adrenaline running through your body. Another reason you need to keep your finger off the trigger is because it shows how experienced you are with firearms. If you got a guy who's always picking up a gun and the first thing he does is put his finger in the trigger guard, you know that guy's not trained. You know that guy is probably the guy you shouldn't be letting having a gun. You can shoot yourself, you can shoot others, especially when drawing a firearm. I see a lot when I used to train people. I saw a lot when I used to train people. People are very, very, very anxious to get their finger in that trigger guard. And sometimes they pop off around. Luckily, I've never seen anybody shoot themselves recently on accident. But if you want to see a couple instances of it, you can go to YouTube. I mean, you can look up Tex Grebner. He was one of the guys who probably didn't have any training, any formal training by a competent instructor, and he was trying to do retention draws, and he ended up popping up around in his leg with a 1911 45 ACP. Luckily, he was using target ammo instead of self-defense ammo, and he just plugged the 2 big holes in his leg on the entrance and the exit. He wasn't able to walk a lot for a while, but I heard he made a full recovery. But you don't want to be one of those people. Keeping your finger out of the trigger guard also prevents negligent discharge. If you cannot pull the trigger, it can't get pulled. You can't fire the gun. Most firearms have what's called a trigger safety. I guess you can call it a trigger safety. One of the guys I watch on YouTube, he calls it the Glock dingus. And without this little nub in here being pulled, I can pull on this trigger all I want to as hard as I want to. It won't fire until that's depressed, and then they're gonna fire. But if you don't have your finger on the trigger, you can't pull the trigger. Therefore, the gun cannot fire. By rule number 1 through 3, you canceled 100% of negligent discharges. 100%. I mean, I don't think it gets any better than that. The 4th rule of gun safety is knowing your target, what's after it, and what's before it. Okay, because just because I know I want to shoot this guy and I shoot him, I might miss. Hell, it might go through him. What's behind him? Are there potential other people to get shot behind him? Probably. What about before him? Is there a guy that's going to be running into the frame because they hear somebody yell gun, and now you press off that round and you shoot the guy running, through the melee of people? You got to know. PID, which stands for positive identification. PID is a must. And that falls directly in balance with rule number 4. Take, for instance, you're in your home. Someone breaks in your house, God forbid, right? But you don't know if it's someone breaking your house. What if it's one of your kids coming home after they snuck out? You go ahead, grab your gun, you pop off a couple rounds of what you hear. Now you killed your kid, all right? Or maybe it's a cop doing a no-knock warrant. They got the wrong house. Now you popped off a round on the cop. Granted, I would pop off a round in his ass too, but now you have to deal with the legal issues about it. And now you might just get shot by cop number 2 coming in the door, all right? So PID is a must. You want to have lights on your guns, which are your self-defense guns. All my firearms that I use for self-defense, like home defense or carrying, not all the time carrying because I don't have enough lights to put on all my carry guns, but all the ones who have a dedicated role is, okay, you are the self-defense or home defense rifle or pistol. They have a light on. All of them. That is just imperative. You need to be able to identify what you're shooting, and you also need to be able to see what you're shooting. Because some states, sorry to say it, if you live in California, a guy breaking in your house is not good enough to shoot him. I know, it's just not. That's why I moved from California, one of the reasons. You need to be able to see if they have a gun, they have a knife, if it's a cell phone, whatever the case may be. PID is a must before shooting. It's a must, okay? You also need to be aware of over-penetration. So what I mean by that, out of all 3 of these firearms here, out of all these 3 firearms right here, it would be crazy for you to think this pistol would probably serve the most over-penetration, right? Than a shotgun and a rifle. That's pretty much the case. These 2 are going to over-penetrate more than this AR-15. Okay. The round designed for the AR-15, the M193, 55 grain flavor, they're designed once they hit something to break apart. They're going to start tumbling and breaking at the cantilever point, and they're not going to over-penetrate a lot. You take some slugs or double-out buck from a shotgun, it'll shoot through your house into the next house. Take a 9mm, 115, 124 grain, man, that thing's going to zip through walls. You wouldn't think so, but it's going to zip through walls like nothing else. All right, so you have to be aware of over-penetration. If I shoot something or someone, is that round going to go through them and hit something else? Or if I miss and I hit a wall, what is it going to go through and what is it going to take for that round to stop? So you also have to be aware of over-penetration. You have to be aware of your forward round, which means from you to the target, you have to be aware of what's in that area. Okay, like I gave the example of somebody running. Now you just shot that guy. Yeah, you were acting in self-defense. You were shooting at a possible threat, or hopefully you know it's a threat if you're shooting them. But you just killed an innocent person or wounded an innocent person. You're going to be held liable. You and the other guy in some states will be held liable. You want to be aware of over-penetration to the point where now you pass through your target, you pass through whatever else. What is the backstop? Okay, what is going to stop that round? Usually, the last time I was involved in an incident where I had to shoot someone or shoot at someone, they were in a car. So, number one, I had to penetrate into the car to hit the subject. Second, I had to make sure that round was going to stay in that guy's body and not come out the other side. You got to think of these things. You got to know these things. You got to know, what does my round, whatever round it is, if it's 5.56, what is that round going to do? to automobile glass, because it's not going to fly straight like in the movies. It's going to go through that glass. I don't know what it is. It's the magic of glass. It's going to ricochet and go all different kind of ways. All right. What about a car door? You know, is this round going to be powerful enough to go through a car door? Yeah. Yeah, it is. Is this one? Yeah. Yeah, it is. But we'll get into ballistics another episode, because there's different things. There's terminal velocity or terminal ballistics, which is going to be what happens when the round actually hits what you're shooting at. There's external and there's internal ballistics, and that's what's happening inside the barrel and on the flight path from the muzzle to the target. You know, I'll do a separate video on those things. That's pretty much it. You know, you want to own every round that you send down range, and you want to make sure that you are following all 4 safety rules. Treating all firearms as if they're loaded. Never point your firearm at anything you don't want to destroy. Keep your trigger finger, off the trigger until you're ready to fire. And know your foreground, your background, have a great backstop, and beware of over penetration. This is Naquab with the True Israelite channel. Shalom.
Speak for justice, seek the truth. See, the trouble is with Jacob, but they hit the proof. We all sleep, but Christ came for lost sheep. It gets deep. Milk for baby, let get meat salvation. That's the point of why we